And I go to the last thing, and this is the Maritime Gas Center, which is going to be inaugurated right now. And I will give this honor, because we have the honor and pleasure to have with us Frode Andersen, who is the ambassador of Norway in Greece, who will take the stage and give us his views of what we're doing here.
Very good. About men and having two thoughts at the same time, so clicking and talking would probably be one too much. But I'm very happy to be here. My name is Frode Overland Andersen. I'm the Norwegian ambassador to Greece and Cyprus. And it's a huge honor for me to kick this off today. But I will take a few steps back in the beginning and give a slide following as we speak.
I hope so.
There we are. That's no small matter. So, before I came to this job in Greece, I was about 10 years in the Foreign Minister's Secretariat in Norway as a Director of Communication. So, one of the things I did then was to travel around with our Foreign Minister to various things. I wouldn't now, if I was in my previous job, I would have been in Davos. Next week I would have been in Munich for the security conference. And you know, going around to this conference, and what happens in all these conferences is it's like normally it's like if you go to the UN, it's like everybody's chatting about the same thing in the hallway. So you meet up with people, and they more or less it's the same bus going around. And for the last few years, it's like the bus has been transition. And if you talk to someone in the hallway, say we are living in times of transition. And as journalists or as business people, you will always hear the politicians coming up with this when you meet them. It's like they will always start into you know, these are times of transition. And they don't really go into that, they say times of transition. But I think when I was looking through the papers, when I was looking through the speaking points today, we are really in the times of transition, and I will get to that point. Because when it comes to energy and climate, this is truly times of transition. We are beginning of a phase, our decade really, because 2020 decades is the decade that will end up with 2030, and we all know what 2030 means in the EU. That means like we would, by 2030, need to achieve a massive reduction of our carbon footprint. And this is the decade to do it. So this is truly a decade of transition. And if you were in Davos this week, I think as a colleague of mine put it, because I texted him and asked, so what's the buzz in Davos this week? And he said it's 3 words. It's climate, and it's climate. Apart from Donald Trump though. But the rest of it. And we see this manifesting itself, this transition manifesting itself in very, very many areas in different ways. Of course, in shipping, the big talk of the town is the sulfur cap. I won't go into the detail because you know this better than me. But another thing is the growth in gas, and especially in LNG, just both for transport in itself, but also LNG as a way to move away from carbon-intensive forms of energy. In Greece's case, of course, lignite would be the obvious case. And as a Norwegian ambassador, it's a very welcome thing to do, to talk about gas, because gas is something we know. This is bread and butter for us. This is something we've done for 60 years in Norway, very much together with DNV GL and with the help of DNV GL. We have done gas in all its forms and shape, and basically supplying, this is known to everyone, we supply 25% of the gas consumption in the EU is supplied by Norway. And DNV GL is a vital partner to be able to do that. As DNV GL said in its Energy Transition Outlook published last year, it shows that 2020 is the decade where growth and demand for gas will peak. And this is not just a phrase. We know that we have to use gas to be able to go through the transition which we're going to go through. Because gas is an energy carrier which enables us to turn it on and off when we want to. And we need that because the sun is not shining, the wind is not blowing every day. So gas is what we need to have. And this is of course evident in the primary use of gas being replacing coal in the energy grid. And Greece is not going to go through a very, very interesting phase. I was at the energy conference yesterday listening to your Minister of Energy, Hatzidakis, talking about sort of front-loading the shift from lignite to gas by 2023. And then you need gas coming into Greece massively. You will have some coming through the LNG, you will have some coming through the TAP. This is actually quite interesting because I was looking through the statistics and I discovered that Norway exported LNG to Greece last year in the amount of 50 million euro. That's quite a lot. And that shouldn't really be possible for a country. Our export facility for LNG is all above the polar circle, all in the Arctic Sea. It shouldn't really be possible to export LNG cost efficient to a Greek, through Alexandropoli, to combat piped gas from Russia. That should technically not be possible, but it is. Thanks to Greek shipping, thanks to DNV GL, and thanks to a lot of other people who make that cheap enough to combat Russian piped gas, which would be the alternative. That's quite astonishing, really. So, I lost my track. Yeah, there we are. So, LNG will also, for the shipping sector, LNG will be vital to be able to do the decarbonization goal of 2050. And this is where DNV GL really becomes interesting as the partner. For DNV GL, gas is a segment where the company has tradition and unique strength, both in the assurance business and advisory service business. In maritime, DNV GL holds a significant order book of 24% of gas carriers, while being the first society to develop standards for floating storage and regasification units, so-called FSRUs. Also, the organization maintains the longest track record in LNG as fuel projects. And this is important because LNG for fuel is now something of increasing importance. We have done this, and together with DNV GL, we've done this in Scandinavia, testing, taking the cost of testing and testing and testing again, LNG for fuel. And hence DNV GL was also important for developing the IMO's regulation on LNG, the so-called IGF code. For DNV GL, Southeast Europe, Middle East and Africa is strategically important, especially within the gas market. I'm supposed to move to slide 2, it says in my text. I almost managed, it was one line too late, but there we go. So, why is this region so important to DNV GL and the gas market? Well, it's pretty simple, because you have Norway is the third largest, but you have the largest LNG exporter in the world in the region, Qatar, supplying LNG throughout the world on Greek vessels. One more. Oh, we're short. Oh, there we are. Yes. That's the right. Thank you. So I couldn't manage after all. So my wife is right. I can't do it. So there we are. On track again. So we have Qatar, and more importantly, we have the network of shipping managers for gas carriers in these regions, which have grown significantly in numbers and capacity, especially over the last 2 years, with multi-million-dollar investments in new assets. And this is the important thing, because LNG at the port doesn't make sense if you can't transport it anywhere. Important companies that are managing the LNG-fueled fleet, deep sea vessels, are also in this region, making this region even more important as a hub for gas and gas technology. We also find significant growth in the regasification projects and LNG bunkering infrastructure in this region, making it, again, a very, very important region to look into when you're talking about gas. As you can see from the slide, there's a huge, high number of global stakeholders based in the region, and DNV GL has the advantage of working closely with 90% of this industry. 90% of this industry. That is an impressive number. Truly something to be proud about. So these are the ideal industrial conditions, and DNV GL has the technical capacity to add value to such a rapidly evolving market. And now moving to the next one. So 2019 was a record year for ordering LNG fueled ships. Exactly 100 ships were ordered, more than 2.5 times the 2016-2008 in average. The trend is increasing towards larger ships and with higher fuel consumption, and many of them will be deployed in global trade. For LNG, the long expected tipping point seems to be here, and that is no small matter because we've been testing LNG. We've been testing it in Scandinavia, we've been testing it in Norway, we've been testing it on short distances. We now think we see a tipping point where we will go into deep sea. And that is truly interesting, both for the industry, but also for the technical know-how of DNV GL. Even so, DNV GL anticipates a significant pickup of interest in alternative fuels in 2020. This is propelled by both higher cost of compliant fuels and the IMO GHG process. We there expect to see a further increase in investments. Dear friends, keeping my introduction in mind and what I said about transition and the times of transition, let me come to the main point of the day. Gas and all the usage of gas needs knowledge and competence. I'm therefore very, very pleased to announce today the launch of DNV GL's new regional maritime gas center. And this is no small matter. This is basically DNV GL coming into the region, putting the regional gas center here, because we think that they think that this is where the growth will happen, and this we need to be to assist, to add value, and to help develop the gas sector in Greece and in the region. So, this is a center with competence and applicable technology, and it's ready to share its experience. The center will bring safety forward and drive standards and regulation. This is a center that will enable DNV GL to provide customized support to the region stakeholders. The center is teamed up by global experts with accumulated experience of more than 60 years of DNV GL involvement in gas. Let's meet them. So, the head of the center will be Mr. John Petter Tuturen, Vice President and Business Director of Gas Carriers FSRU, located in DNV's head office in Oslo. And the rest of the team, Mr. Leonidas Christos and Charistios, sorry about handwriting, trying to do it. Regional Business Development, Gas Segment Director, brings years of experience on gas carrier designs, technology, site experience from new buildings. Mr. Joe Dimopoulos, Head of R&D Advisory Unit, expert in machine and cargo handling systems on modeling and assessments. Ms. Elfride Cavarabias, sorry about the pronunciation, Business Development Manager, Italy Mediterranean Air, Oil and Gas, with expertise for land-based gas processing facilities and LNG bunkering, and Mr. Gunnar Rød, that's easier because that's my language, Senior Technology Advisor with more than 30 years experience in DNV GL and gas carrier designs, technology and regulations. So, in conclusion, this is not only the launch of a center, but it signifies the capacity of DNV GL to deliver real and tangible expertise with the gas market. It also contributes to a greener world, and absolutely staying with the DNV GL slogan, smarter, safer and greener, and truly living up to its name. I strongly believe that DNV GL will play an important role adding value and growth to the gas market, not only here in Greece but throughout the entire region. And as ambassador to two of the countries in the region, I'm deeply honored and I'm truly glad to see this development. So thank you very much for letting me do this, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.